Her name was Frances. She lived in Akron, Ohio, and in 1957 she left the house every morning, whether it was the grocery store, church, or the bank, looking like she had expected to be watched. Nobody was watching. It was Wednesday. She was going to return some library books, 15 rules. None of them had names. She had not read them anywhere. She had learned them watching her mother, who had learned them watching hers, and nobody had bothered to write them down because they seemed too obvious to forget. Number 11 is why the whole morning ran without willpower, and she did it the night before while the dishes were drying. Number 1 is the reason every single rule on this list held without effort for 30 years, and why the whole system collapsed in under a decade, the moment one generation decided it was optional. Let's count down. Rule 15. She decided what she was wearing the night before. After dinner, when the kitchen was clean and the day was winding down, she opened the wardrobe and made the decision. Not in the morning, the evening before. She looked at what she had, considered where she was going, pulled out what she needed, checked it, a loose button, a hem that had come down, a blouse that needed pressing, and hung it on the wardrobe door handle where she could reach it in the morning without thinking. Shoes set underneath, pointed out toward the room. The belt was looped over the hanger if the dress needed one. Morning was for putting the clothes on, not for choosing them. She had noticed that mornings that started with the question, "What am I wearing?" were mornings that started badly. The decision made the night before, in quiet, cost nothing and ran the morning on its own. Rule 14. The handbag was packed the night before. The same evening, the same routine. The handbag for tomorrow was checked and set by the door. Not a full unpack and repack. She didn't carry much, and what she carried was consistent. Compact, lipstick, handkerchief, always cotton, always clean, folded twice. Coin purse. House keys on the hook by the door. A folded list if she was going to the shops, nothing if she wasn't. The bag was checked, closed, set down. Every woman she knew had stood at the kitchen counter at some point in the morning, emptying yesterday's bag onto the counter, looking for something, a receipt, the correct coins, the key she knew was in there. Frances had stopped doing that in her mid-20s and had never started again. Rule 13. She set her hair the night before. Before bed, she sat at the dresser and set her hair in pin curls. Fine-tooth comb first, working in sections. Each section wound close to the scalp and was secured flat with a bobby pin. Front sections pinned forward, sides and back pinned toward the neck, following the direction the curl would need to open in the morning. She placed a cotton net over everything and tied it at the forehead. 10 minutes, start to finish. In the morning, the net and pins came out in sequence, and each curl was unwound with a finger. The comb opened them into waves. A soft brush smoothed the result. 6 minutes. The electric roller set, which replaced pin curls in most American bathrooms in the early 1960s, required the same time investment. But in the morning, under time pressure, the result was less controllable, and the margin for error was smaller. By 1965, the curling iron had arrived, requiring heat-damaged hair to be managed with yet another product. Each replacement created a new problem that required a new solution. Frances spent 10 minutes the night before and 6 minutes the morning of. Her hair held until evening. There was no second step. Rule 12. She ate before she dressed. Breakfast came before everything else. Before the makeup, before the hair, before the clothes went on. 2 eggs and butter, most mornings. Toast from the previous day's bread. Real cream in the coffee. She sat at the kitchen table and ate it there. Not standing at the counter, not in the car, not skipped in favor of a 5-minute lie-in. The table was cleared before she went to dress. The morning meal market barely existed in 1957. She ate because she was hungry, because it would hold her until noon, and because the body that had been asked to dress, press, and present itself for the day needed something to work with first. Frances didn't need a clinical study to confirm it. She just wasn't hungry until noon. Rule 11. She never left with chipped polish. The rule was brief and had no exceptions. Chipped nail polish was worse than none, bare nails read as intentional. A woman with bare, clean nails had made a choice. A woman with chipped red nails had applied a standard and then stopped caring whether it held. And that was visible in a way that bare nails never were. She kept two colors, a Revlon red for Sundays and evenings and a pale Cutex pink for the rest of the week. Revlon's Cherries in the Snow was approximately 65 cents at the Woolworth's drug counter in 1955. When either color chipped and she checked every morning, it came off completely that evening, and the touch-up happened before she slept. Her hands at noon looked the way they had looked at 8 in the morning. The remover and cotton pads were on the dresser. They were there because chipping was not surprising. It was predictable. She had arranged her materials around the predictable reality rather than hoping it would not occur. Rule 10, she checked her seams. Nylon stockings in the 1950s had a seam running straight up the back of each leg, from the heel to the thigh. That seam was either straight or it was not. Before leaving the house, she stood with her back to the full-length mirror, looked over her shoulder, and straightened them. Both legs. The adjustment took 20 seconds. A crooked seam read clearly. She had dressed in a hurry and had not checked behind herself. It told anyone who looked that the standard she presented to the front had not been applied to the back. She checked. Every morning. Seamless stockings arrived in the early 1960s, and the seam, along with the habit of looking at what was behind you before you left, went quietly with them. Nobody filed a report on its departure. Most women simply stopped turning around. Rule 9, she dressed from the inside out. Before any of the visible layers went on, the foundation garment went on first. In the 1950s, this meant a girdle, playtex, maiden form, or form fit, depending on what she could find at the Five and Dime or in the Sears catalog. A playtex living girdle in 1955 retailed for approximately $5.95. It controlled the silhouette from the waist to the upper thigh, held the stocking tops, and determined how every outer layer sat. The function was not purely aesthetic. A dress or skirt worn over a girdle fell cleanly, moved without catching, and held its line through hours of ordinary activity. The hem lay flat. The waist sat where it was meant to sit. The same garment worn without one moved differently, pulled at the hips, shifted during sitting, rose at the back when she stood, and she had long since decided the $5.95 was not about vanity. The modern shapewear market, which emerged in the 1990s and now exceeds $3 billion annually, is the same garment in different packaging, rediscovered and rebranded as innovation. Spanx launched in 2000 and sold the same function Frances had owned since 1952 for 4 times the price. She would have found this difficult to explain. Somewhere in the 1960s, someone figured out there was more money in selling women solutions to problems they did not yet have than in teaching them what their mothers already knew. The morning ritual was the first thing to go, reframed as compliance, then as wasted time, then quietly replaced with a product for every step it used to contain. Dry shampoo instead of pin curls, a granola bar instead of eggs. The women who took those deals did not gain the time they expected. They gained a morning defined by what could be skipped, and a drawer full of things bought to fix the result. Rule 8. She matched. Completely. The coordination system was total and required no deliberation because it had been decided in advance. Handbag matched shoes, or both were neutral, black, navy, white, or brown, never mixed. Gloves matched the hat, or both were cream. If the dress had a belt, the belt matched the shoes. Earrings did not compete with a brooch, one or the other, not both. The rule her mother had given her on the matter was 5 words long. Color belongs in one place. None of this required money. Her gloves had come from the Woolworths 5 and dime at 25 cents a pair. Her everyday bag was black patent and had cost $3.50 at the A&P department counter in 1949. The system was not about expense. It was about looking considered, like a woman who had looked at herself as a whole before she left, rather than assembled the pieces and hoped. The cheapest handbag in the right color outperformed an expensive one that argued with the shoes. She knew this without having a word for it. Rule 7. She wore gloves, white cotton in summer, kid leather in fall and winter, a pair of white church gloves for Sundays and special occasions, laundered weekly. Department store gloves in 1958 ran between $1.50 and $3 at Sears or Montgomery Ward. They went on when she left the house and came off when she sat down. They went back on when she stood up. This was not a formal rule. It was simply what gloves were for. The practical dimensions she did not discuss, they preserved the manicure through the commute, the door handles, the shopping bags, the hours between leaving the house and arriving wherever she was going. She had done her nails once that week. The gloves made once sufficient. The practice looks formal in photographs. What it looks like in person is a woman who has finished the thought, who has taken an outfit all the way to its edge rather than stopping where effort stopped feeling worthwhile. The gloves were $1.50. The effect they produced could not be purchased for any amount without them. If your mother or grandmother left the house with her gloves on, if you are watching this and something in it is already yours, already a memory, hit the like button right now. That is exactly who I am making this for. And stay, because number 1 is the part I made the whole video to get to. Here is something that is easy to miss in this list. None of it required willpower. The clothes had been chosen last night. The bag was already packed. The hair had set while she slept. The nails had been done on Sunday and protected since. The girdle was simply what went on first. The gloves went with the bag because the bag was black and the gloves were black. Frances did not motivate herself into any of this. The structure of her morning motivated her into all of it. She had made a series of decisions once, when she was young, or when she married, or when she watched her mother closely enough to understand, and those decisions ran the morning on her behalf. What looked like discipline from the outside was a system that ran on its own once it was built. That distinction is the whole story. It is also what happened to the morning when the system was taken apart. Rule 6. She powdered at the dresser, not at the door. Foundation first. Then Codier spun loose powder, the same formula sold for 75 cents in 1955 that Coty still sells for $14 today, nearly unchanged, was pressed with the velvet puff in small circles from the center of the face outward. The excess swept off with a soft brush. Lipstick last. All of it done at the dresser, in the best light she had, with both hands free and the mirror at the right angle. Not touched up in the hallway, not corrected at the car mirror with the sun visor down and one eye on the clock. The face was finished before she left the room, because the dresser was where the tools were, where the light was right, where corrections were possible. By the time she reached the front door, there was nothing left to correct. The women in the photographs from this era look finished, because they finished before the photograph. The practice has a simple explanation. She completed the task in the place designed for completing it. Rule 5. She spritzed perfume on her pulse points and only there. Wrists, inner elbows, behind the ears, the base of the throat. Not on the clothes, it stained, and she knew that. Not misted into the air to walk through, that was waste, and she knew that too. The pulse points are where blood runs close to the skin. Body heat activates the fragrance and releases it gradually over hours rather than all at once. Evening in Paris by Bourgeois. The blue bottle that sat on 10 million American dresser tops in the 1950s cost approximately $1.25 for the Eau de Cologne in 1955. White Shoulders by Evian, launched in 1945, ran slightly higher. Both lasted a full day applied this way. Applied to clothes or walked through in a cloud, the same fragrance fades within 2 hours and requires 3 times as much product. Modern perfume advice from fragrance counters, from YouTube, from the bottles themselves, has largely forgotten this sequence. The instructions on the bottle say spray generously. Frances did not spray generously. She spritzed precisely, and the scent arrived with her and stayed. Rule 4. She never left without her lipstick on. Not in her bag, on her lips. Applied at the dresser, before the mirror, as the last step. The technique was simple. Lipstick from the bullet or applied with a brush. Lips pressed together briefly, then a single tissue held between them and drawn away slowly. The tissue took the wax layer with it and left the pigment bonded to the lip. A second coat went on the primed surface. Blotted once more, lightly. Done. She had worn the same color since 1949, something close to Revlon's Fire and Ice, launched in 1952. It sold for 75 cents at the drug counter and became the best-selling lipstick in America within 18 months. People who knew Frances well would have been unsettled by its absence, the way you are unsettled when something familiar is wrong in a way you cannot immediately locate. The lipstick was not decoration. It was the signal to herself before anyone else that the morning was finished. The face was done. The door could be opened. The day could begin. Rule 3. She checked the back. The full-length mirror was the last thing before the door. Not the bathroom mirror above the sink, which showed the face and nothing below the collar. The full-length mirror on the back of the wardrobe door, or in the corner of the bedroom where she could see everything at once from the shoulder to the hem to the heel. She turned once, front, side, back. She was looking for what someone else would see first. A hem that had dropped, a collar that had flipped, a seam that had twisted at the hip, a tag showing at the back of the neck. The things the bathroom mirror had no angle on, the things she would not see again until she caught her reflection in a shop window at 11 in the morning when it was already too late to do anything about it. It took 45 seconds. She turned, she looked, she left. Nobody else was going to tell her if something was wrong. Rule 2, she left before she needed to. 5 minutes. Built into every departure as a structural feature of how the morning was organized. She was almost always early. Not early in the way that requires particular virtue or an alarm clock set 30 minutes ahead. Early in the way that results from treating the departure time as a ceiling rather than a target. She left 5 minutes before she needed to. She arrived composed. She had never learned to read cutting it close as efficiency. She had noticed, over years of watching other women arrive, that those who arrived in a state of slight hurry, door still catching at them, something not quite settled, carried that state with them into the room. The hurried entrance did not end at the entrance. Research on the psychological effects of time pressure confirms what she had simply observed. The stress of rushing does not conclude when the rushing does. It arrives with you and requires time to dissipate. 5 minutes of margin prevented the problem entirely. It cost 5 minutes. She took it without discussion. Rule 1, she finished. Every morning. Not the mornings she felt like it. Every morning. The curls were opened and combed. The girdle was on. The dress hung out the night before was on. The polish had been checked and was unchipped. The seams were straight. The bag was by the door. The perfume was on the pulse points. The lipstick was on and it had been blotted. The full-length mirror had been consulted, turned, and found satisfactory. 5 minutes of margin were built in. She finished because morning was what morning was for, not because she was particularly disciplined. The word implies effort. She did not experience it as effort. She had decided once, long ago, that this was how mornings went. Every morning after that was simply the continuation of a decision already made. The decision did not need to be remade. It ran on its own. What made every woman in those photographs look the way she looked was not any individual item on this list. It was not the Coty powder or the matched accessories or the 20 seconds checking the seams. It was finishing, treating the morning as something that deserved to be completed, holding a standard not because someone required her to, but because she required it of herself. And because once that standard existed, it was simply the morning. The day she stopped finishing, something went with it, not the lipstick, the standard, her own. No system, no product, no morning routine planner, clothes chosen the night before, eggs in butter, pin curls under a cotton net, a tube of Revlon and a jar of Coty Airspun, gloves from Woolworth's 5 and dime, 5 minutes of margin and a full-length mirror consulted before the door. She finished every morning. That was the whole thing. That was everything. Tell me what your mother did before she left the house. What do you still see when you try to remember it? The compact on the dresser, the smell of the powder, the sound of the bobby pins coming out? Leave it in the comments. I read every one. Subscribe and hit the bell. I'll see you in the next one.